Most people think attraction is built through constant attention, perfect looks, or saying exactly the right thing at exactly the right moment. They are wrong. The strongest attraction is often created by what you refuse to force. You can talk endlessly, chase approval, explain yourself, and still become forgettable. Or you can understand a deeper psychological principle. People value what feels meaningful, rare, and earned. Robert Greene repeatedly returns to this idea in different forms. In the 48 Laws of Power, Law 16 warns that absence can increase respect and value. In The Art of Seduction, he explores the power of mystery, anticipation, and emotional tension. And in The Laws of Human Nature, he reminds you that people are rarely as rational as they believe they are. They respond to feelings first, then create explanations afterward. So if you want stronger connections, stop trying to manufacture them. Start understanding what people quietly look for, but rarely say out loud. The first thing people secretly want from you is attention that feels genuine, not desperate attention. Not the kind where you answer instantly because you're terrified they might lose interest. Not attention that comes with an invisible invoice saying, "I gave you attention, now you owe me affection." Real attention is different. It makes someone feel seen. Think about how rare that has become. Everyone is distracted. Everyone is checking notifications. Everyone is waiting for their turn to speak. Someone tells a story, and instead of listening, the other person is already preparing a better story about themselves. That is why genuine attention has become powerful. When you actually listen, you create something most people cannot easily find: psychological space. You don't need to interrogate someone. You don't need to constantly compliment them. You don't need to perform interest. Sometimes the strongest response is simply being present. Ask yourself, when someone talks to you, are you listening to understand them, or are you listening for an opportunity to impress them? That difference changes everything. The weak behavior is trying to prove that you are interesting. The stronger behavior is becoming interested. This is connected to Greene's Law 43. Work on the hearts and minds of others. People remember how you made them feel far longer than they remember the exact words you used. And here's the brutal truth. If you constantly try to make people admire you, you become predictable. But if you make people feel understood, you become memorable. Consider the difference between a person who says, "Look how successful I am," and someone who notices that another person has been unusually quiet and simply asks, "Everything okay?" One demands attention, the other gives it. One is performing, the other is observing. Observation is power. That brings us to the second thing people secretly want: emotional safety without suffocation. This is where many people destroy their own connections. They think closeness means constant contact. They believe if someone matters, they should always be available. Every message needs an immediate response. Every silence needs an explanation. Every change in mood becomes a crisis. Stop. Conch is not surveillance. If someone needs 10 minutes to themselves, that doesn't automatically mean they are abandoning you. If someone is busy, that doesn't mean your value has suddenly collapsed. People need room to remain themselves. Greene's Law 10 warns against the misery of chronically unhappy or emotionally destructive people. And although the law is about avoiding negative influence, there is a deeper lesson. Emotional energy is contagious. If every interaction with you becomes a test, a confrontation, a demand, or a reassurance session, people eventually associate your presence with pressure. That is not attraction. That is emotional exhaustion. The stronger alternative is composure. You don't punish someone for needing space. You don't chase them through silence. You don't create imaginary enemies inside your own head. you remain grounded. If someone is busy, say, "No problem. Talk when you're free." If plans change, say, "All good. We'll figure it out." If someone needs space, give it. This doesn't make you weak. It shows that your emotional stability does not depend entirely on another person's behavior. There is a huge difference between caring about someone and making them responsible for your emotional state. The first creates connection. The second creates pressure. Think of the ocean. The ocean doesn't chase the shore. It moves with its own rhythm. That is the kind of emotional presence you should develop, stable, deep, unhurried. Now let's talk about the third thing people rarely admit they value: authenticity, not performance. Not a carefully manufactured personality. Not pretending to be mysterious because some internet video told you mystery creates attraction. Real authenticity. People can sense when you're constantly calculating. They may not be able to explain exactly what feels wrong, but they feel it. You're laughing because you think they expect you to laugh. You're agreeing because you want approval. You're pretending not to care because you desperately want them to think you're confident. You're changing your personality depending on who is standing in front of you. That isn't confidence. That's fear wearing expensive clothing. Greene's concept of the false self appears throughout his examination of human behavior. People construct masks because they want acceptance, but the mask eventually becomes exhausting. You don't need everyone to like you. Ride that again mentally. You don't need everyone to like you. In fact, your need to be universally accepted can make you less respected. This connects with Law 1. Never outshine the master, but the deeper lesson is awareness of social dynamics. Know when you're trying too hard to win approval. And consider Law 34. Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one. That doesn't mean arrogance. It means internal standards. You don't walk into every room asking, "Do they approve of me?" You walk in asking, "Do I respect the way I am behaving?" That is a completely different mindset. When you stop performing for approval, your behavior becomes calmer, your words become cleaner, your boundaries become stronger, and your relationships become more honest. Now here's where most people fail. They confuse kindness with unlimited access. They believe being a good person means always saying yes, always responding, always forgiving, always accepting disrespect, always making excuses for other people. No, niceness is sometimes just fear disguised as morality. You can be kind without being available to everyone. You can forgive someone without restoring the same level of trust. You can care about someone without allowing them to repeatedly cross your boundaries. This is where Law 19 matters. Know who you're dealing with. Not everyone deserves the same access to your time, energy, or attention. That isn't cruelty. That's discernment. Imagine your home. You don't allow every stranger to walk through your front door simply because you're a nice person. Your attention deserves a door too. Your trust deserves a door. Your time deserves a door. And you decide who gets a key. The mistake is not having boundaries. The mistake is waiting until you're furious before creating them. Don't wait until resentment builds. Say it early. "I can't do that. I'm not comfortable with that. I need some time. That doesn't work for me." No dramatic speech, no 5-minute explanation, no apology for existing, just clarity. People often test boundaries because they want to know whether boundaries actually exist. If you constantly move the line, eventually there is no line. And once there is no line, respect begins to disappear. Now consider another psychological trap: chasing certainty. You want to know exactly what someone thinks, exactly how they feel, exactly what their message means, exactly why they didn't reply, exactly what will happen next. And because you don't know, your mind begins writing stories. They hate me. They are losing interest. I said something wrong. Someone else is more important. Stop writing fiction and calling it evidence. The human brain hates uncertainty, so it creates explanations. But not every explanation is true. This is one of the central lessons of the laws of human nature. You must learn to see through your own emotional interpretations. When you're anxious, neutral behavior can look hostile. When you're insecure, silence can look like rejection. When you're desperate for approval, ordinary distance can feel like abandonment. Your emotions are information. They are not always facts. So instead of reacting instantly, observe, wait, look for patterns. One delayed message means almost nothing. Repeated disrespect is information. One cancelled plan happens. Constant unreliability is a pattern. One disagreement is normal. Repeated manipulation is a pattern. Learn to distinguish events from patterns. That distinction will save you from countless unnecessary emotional battles. And this brings us to something even deeper. Stop trying to control other people's perceptions of you. You cannot control every opinion. You cannot control every rumor. You cannot control whether someone misunderstands you. You cannot control whether someone chooses to leave. Trying to control these things will consume you. Machiavelli understood something that modern people often forget. Power begins with understanding reality as it is, not as you wish it were. Your job is not to control every person. Your job is to control yourself, your reactions, your standards, your availabilities, your attention, your direction. That is where real power begins. If someone misunderstands you, don't immediately launch into a desperate explanation. Ask yourself whether clarification actually matters. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes silence is more intelligent than a defense. Law 4 says always say less than necessary. That law becomes incredibly powerful when you realize how often people weaken themselves by over-explaining. You say no, then explain for 5 minutes. You set a boundary, then apologize for it. You make a decision, then ask everyone whether they agree. You leave a situation, then write a paragraph explaining why stop. A confident decision doesn't require a courtroom defense. Now let's go darker. There are people who don't want connection. They want access. They want your attention when they're bored. They want your energy when they need something. They want your forgiveness without changing. They want your loyalty without giving loyalty back. And if you don't recognize this, you'll spend years calling one-sided relationships friendship. This is where Law 33 becomes useful. Discover each person's weakness, not so you can exploit it, so you can understand the dynamic. Some people are driven by validation, some by status, some by control, some by fear of rejection, some by the need to always be right. Once you understand what motivates someone, their behavior becomes less mysterious. But don't become obsessed with manipulating them. Your greatest advantage is often simply refusing to participate in the game. If someone tries to provoke you, don't give them the emotional reaction they came for. If someone constantly creates drama, don't become the audience. If someone repeatedly disrespects you, don't deliver an emotional speech every time. Reduce access. Distant is sometimes the cleanest boundary. Remember Law 16. Use absence to increase respect and honor. Absence isn't a childish punishment, it's a consequence. If someone treats your presence as worthless, they may eventually discover the value of your absence. And if they don't, that tells you something important too. Your goal was never to force someone to value you. Your goal was to stop undervaluing yourself. This is the transformation. You stop asking, how do I make them want me? You start asking, Does this relationship deserve my energy? You stop asking. How do I make them chase me? You start asking. Are they capable of meeting me with equal effort? You stop asking. How do I become irresistible? You start asking. How do I become someone I respect? That shift changes everything, because attraction, friendship, respect, and influence all become healthier when they are built on choice rather than desperation. And here's the final lesson. Never make another person the center of your identity. The moment your entire emotional world revolves around one person's attention, you have handed them power they never earned. Your life must be larger than any single relationship. Your goals, your skills, your studies, your work, your creativity, your physical and mental discipline, your friendships, your future, your private ambitions. Build a life so substantial that another person's approval becomes a bonus rather than oxygen. That is what mastery is ultimately about. You become absorbed in becoming excellent. You stop obsessing over who is watching. You stop measuring your worth through reactions. You stop begging the world to confirm that you matter. You build, quietly, consistently, relentlessly. And eventually, something strange happens. People notice, not because you chased attention, because you stopped needing it. You become the person who can walk away from an argument without needing the last word. The person who can hear criticism without collapsing. The person who can receive praise without becoming addicted to it. The person who can care deeply without losing themselves. The person who can say no without guilt. The person who can say yes without fear. That is emotional power, not manipulation, not games, not pretending to be cold control. Self-command, discernment. You are shedding the dead skin of your old self, the version of you that over-explained, the version that chased, the version that begged for reassurance, the version that accepted crumbs because you were afraid there would be nothing else. Let that version disappear. You don't need to become cruel. You need to become difficult to manipulate. You don't need to become emotionless. You need to become difficult to destabilize. You don't need to make people fear losing you. You need to become comfortable with losing what does not respect you. That is the difference between performing power and possessing it. So look at your relationships honestly. Where are you overgiving? Where are you chasing? Where are you accepting behavior you would tell someone else to reject? Where are you pretending not to care when you actually care too much? And where have you confused being needed with being valued? Write down the one behavior you know you must stop. Then write down the replacement. Not tomorrow, not someday, now, because your life changes when your standards change. And your standards change when your identity changes. You are not here to convince everyone to choose you. You are here to choose yourself intelligently. If this made you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort is sometimes the first sign that an illusion is breaking. Ask yourself one final question. What would change in your life if you stopped chasing approval and started protecting your attention? Write your answer down, then live according to it. And if you want to keep studying the darker side of human nature, influence, discipline, and the laws of power, subscribe and stay close. Because mastering power does not begin with controlling other people. It begins with mastering the person you see in the mirror.